All right, welcome to the Wooper Club League Season 6 Power Rankings. Now we've just finished up Week 4, so we are closing in on the halfway point next week. Week 5 is the halfway point. So these are starting to become a little more relevant. We're starting to see things take shape a little more. I'm, of course, joined, as always, by my co-host, SteveChuck. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello. And let's jump into what we've got here. So, only somewhat minor changes all around. We're going to start off, though, as usual, at the bottom there. We have a new number 6 team with the 2-2 Akron Agrons, who just pulled off a win against the Cleveland Castforms. So, the Agrons, coached by Joey, brought a team of Incineroar, Lycanroc, Urshifu, Rillaboom, Chansey, and Sableye. And he ended up winning this match 4-0, which is definitely encouraging for him. I think big strength of this particular matchup was he saw how effective Toxic was in breaking down some of these really ridiculous walls. He identified the Castforms have a very bulky, very defensive team overall, and even if he didn't bring some threats like Porygon 2, he's still able to effectively Toxic down things like the G-Max Lapras and the Dusclops were very effectively taken care of. I think the thing that stood out to me the most was that Sableye set was absolutely fire. Didn't have any attacking moves, didn't need any, because it got to mean look the Togekiss on the switch, got to taunt it so that his rocks could stay up from the defog, and just spam some Toxic and recovers. And that's really all he needed to do. With priority, didn't have to worry about being flinched down, took just not quite enough damage, identified that he probably wouldn't be bringing a fairy move even for coverage for this, because he thought that probably Air Slash would do well. So great set, great bring on that. I would say that probably made things like the Ferrothorn a little tougher to deal with, especially considering that earlier on in the match he kind of selected his Lycanroc off for absolutely nothing. And then when the Incineroar went down, Ferrothorn actually looked like it could possibly do a little bit of something, but of course he's able to finish it off relatively easily. The Chansey wall was incredibly effective too. It stopped the Hydreigon dead in its tracks, and probably could have stopped a couple other things too if he had decided he wanted to bring that in. The Dusclops would have been effectively stalled. The Lapras, of course, as well. I think he did use it on the Dusclops, and just was able to just sit in there against all the special walls. Identified very, very well when it needed to stay in, when it needed to come out, with the exception of sacking off that Lycanroc. So props to him, 2-2, looking to have a strong second half of the season here against some of the top seeds. Is there anything else that you would like to point out about this battle, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I will give Joey a little bit of credit about that Lycanroc switch you keep alluding to. It's very clear, and after talking to him, that he was expecting a third nasty plot out of the Hydreigon, and he just didn't want to keep Chansey in, kind of as a passive mod and let Hydreigon get all this setup in. He was trying to switch in something that would be faster and be able to pick up a clean KO with close combat. It just unfortunately didn't work out as Hydreigon decided to take that turn to attack, rendering the switch ineffective. But I like the idea to put on the pressure. It just was an unfortunate situation there.
Yeah, absolutely. And he could still fall back on the Chansey afterwards anyways when it didn't work out, and kind of continue the game plan. So it wasn't a terrible move. I don't think. It just didn't really end up working out.
Right.
All right, so moving on from number 6, Akron Agrons, we're actually going to skip 5 for just a moment. We'll be right back at that. But Steve, I just love hearing you talk about me, so let's go with the Buffalo Bouffalant at number 4 next.
Yeah. So Nate and his Buffalo Bouffalant went ahead and faced John and his Close Combat Club. Nate brought a team of Dragapult, Mew, Magnezone, Silvally, Mantine, and Vikavolt, and was able to secure a 5-0 win over the Close Combat Club. As always, I love to give credit to Nate on his team building here. I was able to look at John's team and identify some key threats, some of them like Amoonguss with its Spore. He decided Vikavolt is my Amoonguss answer and put safety goggles on it, and that was that. Noticed a lack of hazard removal on the Close Combat Club and decided to equip Mew, who can do anything with spikes, to really hamper that Regenerator core, and wasn't too worried about the spikes being removed because of the lack of removal. When looking at the team, it's identified that Subtoxic Magnezone, very effective. So effective, in fact, that after it first set up Substitute, his opponent asked what happens when a forfeit occurs. We did encourage and ended up playing out the battle, but that's when, as soon as his opponent saw the Subtoxic, he's like, oh wow, I have nothing for this. Sees Keldeo as a big threat on his opponent's team. Mantime just walls Keldon and everything he can do. And one more thing was the no item on Mew to counter Poltergeist from Golurk, giving Mew kind of that Golurk matchup. You might think with the Ghost super effective, but the immunity to Poltergeist resolves that. So excellent job as always with the team building. Another thing that Nate did well and has always done well is mid-battle calculations to figure out what his opponent is. In the battle, was able to identify the Jolteon was choiced due to damage rolls, and was able to therefore switch in his Mantine in on an incoming Shadow Ball to relieve pressure on other team members. So it was well prepped, well executed during the game, and all in all, just the preparation showed, and the 5-0, great result this week. Have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it could have pretty easily been a 6-0. I don't think there was really any need to sack the Mew, and I did, but I could be kind of nitpicking at that point. I kind of want to hammer in that Magnezone set. I was so proud of that thing, the fact that a lot of his key defensive mons just could not break the substitute, even in 2 hits in some cases. I was definitely proud of that bring. And the only other thing that I think really stood out to me was there was a turn where I was able to predict Amoonguss coming in on a Dragapult, and I was able to just click Draco Meteor to get that out of the way, and then Golurk comes in able to click Draco again, get 2 big threats just right out of the way without having to really think about it. It was super big. I think I overall had a very good matchup against him in the first place, and his lack of prep time really showed there a little bit too. So unfortunate that that's how that turned out, but I kind of need that 5-0 win to get back on track here. As we see, was able to bump up a spot in the standings. And that is partially due to the next match that we get to talk about, where the Cincinnati Incineroar and the Kanto Kinglers, numbers 2 and 5 on our list, faced off. You may have noticed these two, I think, just about swapped positions. The Incineroar, I believe, were 4 last week, and the Kinglers are up at 2. But the Kinglers actually suffered their first defeat here at the hands of the Incineroar, who've just been climbing in our rankings since their Week 1 loss to you, Steve, and your Wobbuffets. So we kind of break this battle down a little more in depth because we've got both sides here making still in the top 5, each of them. Michael brought a team of Espeon, Seismitoad, Liepard, Manectric, Pelipper, and the G-Max Kingler, whereas Matt and his Incineroar brought the Diggersby, Steelix, Goodra, Dhelmise, Clefable, and Orbeetle. A couple things, I'm going to start with Michael with the Kinglers. I thought the Endeavor Seismitoad was super fire. That's something he's done very well, is find really interesting or cool moves to bring on stuff and just have it work. I know we've talked about it previously with having things like Tailwind. It seems super random on the team, but it just really works out for him in the end. That Endeavor really helped against a Clefable that was setting up like crazy. I think another thing that I haven't really been able to highlight for him is he's used his Espeon super effectively all season. Just being able to click Dazzling Gleam a couple times, getting rid of the Diggersby in this game, and in previous matches, just knowing the right set for it, being able to do things to outspeed the proper opponents. Espeon has been super well played. I feel like that's one that I kind of underrate with seeing how well that he's done with the Espeon. However, in a 5-0 loss, there are some things we have to point out on the negative side. I think one thing that stood out is that Clefable, after he did Endeavor it and get it super low, he didn't actually opt to finish it off. I know that thing had a ton of defenses after some Cosmic Powers were up, but he did not take the opportunity to finish it off, and instead tricked a Scarf onto it. While still nice, gave it a chance to wish up itself, and then pass a wish off into something else. It meant he could still go back into it in Aromatherapy, if that was the option that Michael wanted to use to get some things chipped down, and he just didn't seize the opportunity to take down a 9% Clefable, which was a little frustrating too. And similarly with the Clefable, he saw all the moves it had, saw that Cosmic Power was the only attacking move, and yet kept Liepard on the bench. I know Liepard isn't going to do anything to it, but you can at least try and stall out a bunch of the power points or force him to switch with the Liepard there. Liepard wasn't necessarily going to do that much else. I know the Orbeetle and Dhelmise obviously could have taken a beating from it, but Liepard's probably best use was to completely wall that set, and without seeing the Liepard coming in, that was a little bit upsetting to see from that. For Matt's side, obviously played super well, and take down one of the 2 remaining undefeated teams. The screen at the very beginning from Orbeetle, I thought was very effective. The Reflect letting other things set up there, and then the Clefable set. I know he may not have expected the Liepard to come, considering how low tier mon it is, so that stored power set was really, really cool to see. I know he also didn't bring Magic Guard, which I was super confused about at first, but then seeing him click Aromatherapy, just, oh wow, that it could still function even if he didn't have the chance to set up, still be able to go out into it, wish Aromatherapy as a support while also having a setup option, so kudos to that set. That was very cool to see. A couple other things, I know that Michael has been favoring the rain quite a bit. He brought the Pelipper at one point there too, and bringing Hydration Gudra, just a small little optimization there without really seeing a threatening grass type on Michael's side that helped him hero the Toxic just immediately. Something very cool for that. And Thunder Punch to take out the Pelipper as well. So Gudra, I thought, has been played very well this season from his side. And then at the end of the game there too, the Delmise totally walled the Kingler. Kingler, all it can really do is set up physically. Delmise resisting the water move is all that he needed to have happen with it. And the cool synthesis tech there, even though he expected rain might come, knew that once the rain was taken care of, that opened up Delmise a ton more there. Was able to claim a couple of late KOs with the Delmise. So very good game, very effective sets from Matt all the way around, very fun to watch. What else do you have for us, Steve?
Yeah. Some more notes on the Kinglers. Even though Clefable ended up not being Magic Guard, it was I guess good of Michael to check that. Before realizing that Liepard was the option there, spamming Toxic, which the first one of course missed because why does a 90% move hit? But that trying to Toxic the Clefable just as a potential out before realizing Liepard's ability to shut it down was a pretty good move. And I'm pretty sure in general Calm Mind sets this set would tend to be unaware to prevent opponents from boosting up and getting through it.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of that awareness of what the general set I believe is, and using Toxic as one of its potential weaknesses was pretty big. And then on the Incineroar's part, I mean, you covered what he did quite well. Shout out to Rapid Spin on Delmise for picking out 2 KOs there at the end. Getting that speed up to -4 instead of -6 probably had a very large part to do with his win.
No doubt, Delmise is a speed demon. I think we're all very aware of that. We're going to move on to where another speed demon was able to dominate in the Psyducks match. Zach and his Psyducks were able to pick up another W, and they are in the number 3 spot. So why don't you talk about that one for us, Steve?
Yeah. So Zach and his Summit County Psyducks faced off against Jared and his Cincinnati Ursaring. Zach brought a team of Gengar, Kyurem, Vaporeon, Rotom Heat, Slurpuff, and Bronzong. And he very effectively was able to wall and beat down Jared for a 6-0 victory. Throughout the battle, he really only used 3 Mons. He did start with Bronzong, and Bronzong did absorb a Spore from Fungus before not doing anything for the rest of the battle. But for the rest of the battle, between Vaporeon, Slurpuff, and Rotom Heat, he was able to wall Jared's team until the Dracovish was choiced into a Dragon move, allowing Slurpuff to switch in, set up a Belly Drum, and sweep. Up until that point, Zach was very aware of what his 2 defensive Pokemon in Rotom Heat and Vaporeon would wall, knowing that Rotom had a very safe matchup against Talonflame and was able to keep that in against Talonflame and secure an easy KO there. Knew that Vaporeon had a great matchup against really everything else. Honestly, even probably knowing Vaporeon had a great matchup in general. But even so, keeping Vaporeon out there and kept using Wish and recycling Health, Skull to burn these incredible physical attackers on Jared's side until the opportunity presented itself to go into Slurpuff to sweep. I mean, that's really it. It was a real quick game, played defensive until Slurpuff could get in and sweep, and that was really it. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think just identifying that Slurpuff set in particular would work out so well for him. Picking out the right 3 moves, Facade, Drain Punch, Play Rough. Even if Play Roughs were missing, perhaps work on the affection of your Pokemon a little bit. But it didn't seem to matter in the end as he secured a relatively easy 6-0. And I want to highlight that Vaporeon again, because all season, as we're getting to about the halfway point, start to really see how people are using their Mons well, and Vaporeon has definitely stood out every single week as being so effective for him. That Vaporeon walling so many different key threats in the league. We're really excited to see what else it can do, how many more Scald Birds it can have in there too. So we're going to go back to, I think this is the 4th week in a row, I'm pretty sure every single time now, we've had Steven and your Waterdeep Wobbuffets up at number 1. Congratulations again on that. And this time able to do it once again with a 6-0 victory, and this time over Chad and the Seattle Steamrollers. So talking about the match a little bit, brought up a Lycanroc Dusk, a Cinderace, an Aegislash, Venusaur, Rotom, and a Sylveon. So starting off with Venusaur, not something that you normally bring all that often, but knowing that you're going into a Sun matchup, awesome identification there, I think. Bringing in a couple of key moves like the Earth Power, I thought was very nice. Having a knockoff to be able to still do a little bit of something against the Blissey was very nice. Honestly, it was just make the right switches pretty much all game. You were definitely able to identify what the safe moves were, knowing that you could still click Volt Switch, for example, on a Crocodile, because you are able to identify this thing is Scarfed. It's got to be able to switch out. It's not doing damage to me with either an Earthquake or Knockoff, which another great identification there too. You're able to see that once your item was gone, Knockoff wasn't doing as much and became an even better Crocodile answer. And just continuously pounding away at that Volt Switch button, even in front of Ground type, it was the right move, because you knew that that Crocodile couldn't change moves. So identifying the proper counter there, knowing what Venusaur could soak up, knowing what you had to do in order to break through the Corviknight, I thought was also very effective. That was starting to look a little threatening, I think. Corviknight boosting up to +3/+3, but still able to know that even outside of the Sun, Cinderace is very strong with that Pyro Ball. And being able to snag a burn on there was obviously nice, but it already did over half. Didn't necessarily need it, just needed to connect a couple times, and it sure worked out. So no matter how much it boosted up, it was still there. And of course the Lycanroc guaranteed 100% win button against Charizard by just clicking Accelerock. Super easy, super simple, super clean, I think is the big thing that I'd like to emphasize. There really weren't any particular missteps, I think. Once again, Volt switching and you turning around on Chad early game to get yourself into a good position. That seems to be the strategy, I think, against him. And it all worked out in the end. Really only had to cycle between a select number. I don't think Sylveon even appeared in the battle. So everything seemed to have worked out in the end. Anything else you'd like to say about your battle before we wrap things up?
I mean, yeah, you highlighted the Corviknight, and that I was getting worried about it. I as the person with Corviknight last season, I didn't have to deal with prepping for it, and even though I prepped for it and was aware what it could do, it still put on way too much pressure than I was comfortable with. But yeah, I was able to get in Cinderace at the right time, and before it got too boosted, and saw that the Pyro Ball would do roughly 50%, a little more, and that was enough after it got so low after the Volt Switch. So that was close, and if I did not get that chance, that Corviknight probably could have broke through most of my team before, I don't know, maybe going down to some residual damage, but that ended up working out.
Right, so kind of surprised how little it took from something like that Volt Switch. I think only about 33%. Corviknight is just a beast.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to wrap things up here. Again, there's our top 6 for post-Week 4. Next week, we've got Week 5, a couple of matchups within the top 5. I know I and my Buffalo Bouffalant will be facing off against Michael and the Kanto Kinglers. A loss there could be super impactful and perhaps even spurring on one of our slow declines back down. And another one, highlight matchup, probably the big one for the week, is you facing off against Zach and the Psyducks. Saying the 1 and 3 teams face off. I know the Psyducks have a very good differential too, and if they pull off the W, there is a chance we could see a new number 1 team up there. So definitely come back next week to find out what we've got for you. But for now, that'll do it. We'll see ya.